right, everyone. Today's webinar will be conducted by myself, and also we have Tina Dunphy on the line. Tina is the Ohio State Program Director for CNCS, and she helps manage our program. Also joining us is Sam Sauter. She is our current VISTA leader. She's kind of doing the behind the scenes work on today's webinar, so you might hear her pop in now and again to help share her insights. So I'm going to go ahead and kick things off by turning this over to Tina, and she's going to give you an overview of CNCS and AmeriCorps VISTA. So let me start by advancing some slides. And actually, I'm sorry, Tina, before we get to you, let me just quickly go over the agenda first. Tina's going to be covering AmeriCorps VISTA, give you an overview about that government program. And then we're going to be talking specifically about the NeighborWorks VISTA project. We'll get into a little bit about the goals for the project, some of our previous accomplishments, benefits and impacts of being a part of our program. Then we're going to get more into the application. We'll talk a little bit about what we're asking in the application, what our expectations are, and really what makes a strong application. Then we'll cover the dates that you'll need to be aware of, go over some final reminders, we'll give out our contact information, and then if you have any questions, we can take those at the end, but you do have a chat feature, so if you're worried you will forget your question, go ahead and chat that, and we'll try and get to that as we go along. And right now, I do have everybody on mute, but you do have the ability to unmute yourselves. So if you'd rather have a dialogue, we can make that happen too. Otherwise, you could chat your question online.
Hi, everybody. This is Tina Dunphy. So I'm just going to hop in here and chat with you for a couple of minutes while Debbie and Sam are kind of figuring out the technical difficulties with the PowerPoint. But as Debbie said, my name is Tina Dunphy, and I'm the State Program Director for the Ohio State Office. And you may think that, well, that's really strange. Why is somebody from Ohio managing a national VISTA project based out of DC? But 9 years ago, I was asked, my supervisor walked into my office one day and said, "Hey, Tina, how'd you like to manage a national VISTA project?" And not knowing what I was getting myself into, I said, "Sure, how about that? That'd be fine." So that began my very fulfilled a 9-year journey with the NeighborWorks VISTA project. The first few years, we had just a ton of people coming on. We had to do a lot of training, and Debbie and Sam is the most current VISTA leader. They do a phenomenal job in managing things on the NeighborWorks side of things. So just to give you a little bit of background, first of all, let me say I'm happy to be here with you today. It's always exciting to talk to the NeighborWorks sub-site supervisors and the folks who are really helping or will help VISTA members to achieve some great things in the community. So just to give you a little bit of background information, if you don't already know who the Corporation for National and Community Services, we're the federal agency that funds two types of programs, AmeriCorps and Senior Corps. Our mission is to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteering. And we do that through those two types of programs, AmeriCorps and Senior Corps. We won't talk much about Senior Corps today, but briefly, the Senior Corps umbrella encompasses 3 different programs: RSVP, Senior Companions, and Foster Grandparents. And excuse me, all the volunteers involved in those programs have to be at least 55 years of age. They do some wonderful things in communities. It's highly likely that you have those resources in your community. So if you haven't tapped into those, the power of those seniors who are volunteering, I would encourage you to connect with them. But what we're going to talk more about today is the AmeriCorps program. So and I should say that there's a misprint on this slide, which is completely my fault. The Social Innovation Fund is no longer a program under our umbrella. That got defunded in the last fiscal year. So The first program that I'm going to talk about as far as AmeriCorps is NCCC. We won't spend a lot of time on that, but NCCC is another great resource. NCCC members focus on meeting critical community needs. They are based on one of 5 campuses across the United States. They're deployed in teams of 10 to 12, and those members go out to communities for short bursts of time, which we call spikes, focusing on a variety of things. A lot of them do disaster services with response or readiness. We have had a lot of NCCC teams down as response in Houston and Texas area, Florida after Hurricane Irma, and down in Puerto Rico. And we've had always a long history of recovery with Hurricane Katrina down on the Gulf Coast. So that's kind of NCCC in a nutshell. Again, a great resource that I would encourage you to look into as you go through this process as well. So AmeriCorps State and National, another AmeriCorps program similar to VISTA, which we'll talk more at length here shortly, but AmeriCorps State and National members are also focused on meeting critical community needs. And those members in those programs do direct service. And I say direct service because I'm going to talk to you about what VISTA members do, and that's indirect service. So just wanted to make that distinction there. AmeriCorps State members can serve in a variety of roles. They can be part-time, quarter-time, full-time. They serve with local nonprofit organizations doing whatever it is the community has decided is the most critical thing that needs to be addressed. So, and then the real reason that we're here today is to talk about AmeriCorps VISTA, which is, VISTA is an acronym for Volunteers in Service to America. We were implemented in 1964 under President Johnson's War on Poverty, and we've been doing that work since that time. So we've just celebrated our 50th anniversary a couple of years ago. So we are looking forward to celebrating our 55th, and hopefully you'll be along for the ride on that. So VISTA, as I mentioned, was developed during President Johnson's War on Poverty. So the focus for VISTA members and the VISTA projects is on poverty alleviation. And members do that, and their supervisors, the organizations with which they work, do that through program development and organizational capacity building. So capacity building, people will say, well, what the heck does that mean? That's a big word for what? So in the nonprofit world, and I should say any organization is eligible to apply for VISTA resources except for for-profit entities. Just about anybody, any organization, any type of organization is eligible. So, but VISTA members build capacity with the organization that they're serving with. And they do that to help bring people out of poverty. And capacity building, as we define it, are indirect kinds of activities like writing grants, doing research, helping develop volunteer programs or volunteer systems, helping figure out what a training curriculum might look like for your financial literacy program. So VISTA members are typically behind the scenes, building a program or expanding a program, exploring new programs maybe for their organization to implement, with the eventual goal of bringing people out of poverty. So that's really what we mean by capacity building. So the core principles, as I mentioned so far, are ending poverty, building capacity. Another is empowering communities, because we know that the most successful VISTA projects, or pretty much any community-based project, is most successful when community is engaged in that project and has some hand in guiding the work of that project. So we want to make sure that we're empowering communities through the work of our VISTA members. And then probably the last principle, but not the least, for VISTA is creating sustainable solutions. And what we mean by that is that as VISTA members are working on these projects, their primary goal is to leave something sustainable behind, meaning that they're not in there just for the year or 2 years or 3 years that you may have them on site, but they're building something that after they're gone, or after you no longer have VISTA resources at your organization, those programs, those things that they built are still in place. the research that they conducted has a long-lasting effect on your organization's ability, let's say, to provide services to the low-income community. So again, I just want to reiterate the core principles of VISTA are ending poverty, empowering communities, building capacity, and creating sustainable solutions. So this next slide is very full, and it probably has a lot more information than what you really need to know for today, but it's an org chart of sorts that demonstrates kind of the flow of information, let's say. The hierarchy, I guess, is another way you could put it. You can see that the Corporation for National Service is at the top. Underneath that is our, again, 3 programs. That the Social Innovation Fund is no longer a program. My bad for not checking that. And then under the AmeriCorps badge there, or the logo, you can see NCCC, VISTA, and State and National. So VISTA is also unique in the fact that VISTA projects are managed out of individual state offices. So as I and Debbie have said, I'm based in Ohio. My role primarily is managing VISTA projects here in Ohio. I just have the fortunate situation to be also managing this national VISTA project with NeighborWorks. So the state office is the primary federal grants manager for VISTA grants. And so we give grants to sponsoring organizations such as NeighborWorks to fund the work on the ground that they've proposed in their application. So NeighborWorks in this scenario is a sponsoring organization, and that's on the right side of the screen. And then under that, there's a little house, and it's labeled intermediary. And what that means is that NeighborWorks acts as an intermediary organization for us, where we give the resources directly to NeighborWorks, and they then in turn give resources out to their affiliate networks, or the NWOs, based on applications that come up to NeighborWorks. So, and then at each subsite, as we call it, there'll be a lot of terminology over the next few months if you're successful in your application that you will hear and hopefully you will learn. But a subsite is an NWO in the NeighborWorks world, and then subsite supervisors would be the folks there at the organization that are charged with supervising the VISTA members on the ground. So VISTA members are on the ground, supervised by subsite supervisors, who then in turn report to their intermediary, which is NeighborWorks in this case, and then NeighborWorks and I have a direct relationship for reporting, giving advice, talking through what the program should or could look like, and doing compliance monitoring. So, all right, so who are VISTA members? Who are these folks that you are thinking about applying for? So VISTA members are folks who make a 1-year commitment, a 365-day commitment. They serve full-time, so that means 24/7, 365 days. That seems a little unusual, I know, but it's written in the statute that way because VISTA members are supposed to be on call for your organization 24/7, meaning that if you have weekend events that they need to attend or help with, or evening meetings, partnership meetings, they would be expected to attend those. And so that's set forth that expectation with the VISTA members as soon as they come into the program. So just be aware of that. They're only full-time, so there are no part-time positions with VISTA. So be thinking about that too, to make sure that you have sufficient work to keep one or more VISTA members engaged. VISTA members hopefully meet the knowledge, skill, and ability requirements set by the sponsoring organization, or in this case, by a subsite organization or a NeighborWorks NWO. It would be the NWO's responsibility to determine what the skill set is that's required and establish those in the application process. VISTA members, or candidates actually as they're called before they become members, they have to be at least 18 years of age, and there is no upper age limit, which is just a great opportunity. This is a great opportunity for people who are retired or in between careers, as they're thinking about what they want to do next, or if they, as a retirement gig, they would just want to expand their their retirement income. So again, 18 years of age is the minimum and no upper age limit. VISTA members also have to be U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents. And they also have to pass a review of criminal history. We have a fairly strict criminal history check requirement. They have to pass an FBI check. That doesn't happen until they actually come on site with you. We perform those checks. But if they do have a criminal history, that doesn't necessarily negate their ability to participate. It just may mean that there are there may be additional information that we may need to get in that process. So, all right. So some of the member benefits are benefits that VISTA members accrue during the year. Every VISTA member is paid a living allowance. That is wholly dependent on the geographic area in which they're serving. So the living allowance here in Ohio, I'm giving you that as an example because the NeighborWorks living allowance rates are obviously all over the map because the projects are all over the map. But here in Ohio, the living allowance rate is about $12,300. It's not a lot of money. If people come to VISTA for the money, they're in it for the wrong reason, for so many reasons. They really should be coming to us and coming to the project for their passion, with their passion and commitment. But everybody gets a living allowance. They're eligible to choose either an education award that can be used to pay off student loans or used toward tuition. They earn that at the completion of their service term. They have the option in lieu of the education award to choose a cash stipend payout at the end of term of service. And right now, the education award is just a little over $5,900, which is a nice carrot at the end of a very long stick sometimes. And the cash stipend is $1,800. So this may be too much information for you, but I want you to have a kind of sense of what accrues to people while they're VISTA members. You can be thinking about that when, as you're putting your application together and thinking about recruitment and where you might recruit from. VISTA members also are entitled to what we call a healthcare subsidy. They have to have health insurance, whether that be on their parents' insurance or spouses or whatever insurance. Maybe they're on the, insured under the Affordable Care Act, but everybody has to have health insurance. If they do, they're eligible for a subsidy of $7,350 this year. That can help pay for out-of-pocket costs. If they're exempt from the ACA requirements, they can enroll. We do have a health plan that's minimum. It does cover the requirements under the ACA. It's not health insurance, but it is a healthcare plan. So the other things that that VISTA members are eligible to receive include child care benefits. That's if they're income eligible. And at their end of term of service, just like when they earn the education award or their end of service stipend, they also earn non-competitive eligibility for federal employment. That doesn't mean they're guaranteed a job. It just kind of gives them a leg up in the process and gives them extra points as they apply to federal jobs. Excuse me. Housing assistance, we don't provide that. We don't require it, but it certainly is an optional thing for a NeighborWorks organization or a subsite to offer to candidates. It makes the position very attractive to candidates who are earning such a kind of a meager living allowance. Mileage reimbursement for service-related travel is a requirement to be provided by the subsite. So, we certainly wouldn't expect a VISTA member to go to meetings across town, 4 times a month, and then them have to pick up their own mileage or their own gas for that. So that would be a requirement that you would need to cover. And then, of course, professional development. I would say that I don't have the numbers to cite right now, but the vast majority of our VISTA members are recent college graduates. So this may be their first professional experience. So giving them opportunities of professional development just only enhances their service, enhances their ability to serve you, and helps them also build their resume for whatever they have planned for their future. Certainly, it's encouraged. We don't require it, but you as professional individuals yourself understand the importance of professional development. Okay. So the VISTA program cycle, this slide really kind of helps you walk through thinking about writing your VISTA application to NeighborWorks. So you always want to begin the program with the end in mind. So think about what it is, what issue it is that you want to tackle using VISTA resources, and how you would measure that, your success in doing that. So, you know, you would identify your objective. You would then think about the kind of activities that a VISTA member would have to undertake in order to address or to work toward achieving that objective. I mean, developing a timeline. The applying annually means that you can apply to us annually. Our resources are limited. We do require every VISTA project to apply to us annually. Obviously, we're a federal program, so our resources are wholly dependent on, you know, whether Congress reappropriates funding for us. But so anyway, just to recap, you would develop your project timeline, apply to us annually, and then hopefully by the year 2, 3, 4, 5, you reach sustainability with whatever project that you have in mind and that you propose in your application. It's, you know, the slide indicates 1 to 3 years. That's kind of a general rule of thumb. It's not a hard and fast rule. You know, we understand that sustainability sometimes can take longer than 3 years, but generally that's kind of the expectation with our understanding that additional time may be needed. So, all right, so as a site supervisor, you might, or as a potential site supervisor, as you're applying or thinking about applying, you're probably wondering what your responsibilities will be. So the responsibility for recruiting and selecting the candidate to become your VISTA member is yours. Everybody has to apply through our online platform called My AmeriCorps, but it will be up to you to put together what we call a posting or a job description, a VISTA assignment description, and recruiting and selecting your candidates. So just bear that in mind as you're thinking through, excuse me, the application. You'll also be responsible for providing on-site VISTA training. We call it on-site orientation. That needs to happen within the first month or so, getting people acclimated to your organization and the community. You would be providing daily supervision of your VISTA members and, you know, kind of structuring what that looks like for your VISTA member. And then supporting members as they go through pre-service orientation. So PSO, as we call it, and I should have forewarned you if I haven't already, the corporation is full of acronyms and alphabet soup, actually. So PSO is actually a 3.5-day training that all VISTA members attend before they can actually become a member. So you would select a candidate. I would enroll them into a pre-service orientation, and then only after they attend that training and they take the oath of service do they come on site with you and then become a VISTA member and start their work with you. So the other requirements that you would have are providing workspace and needed equipment, so a desk or access to a desk, access to a phone and computer. You know, we don't require that each individual have their own computer and phone, but that very well be necessitated by the activities that the member's doing, so be thinking about whether or not you have that capacity as well. It's always important to provide coaching and mentoring to your members. As I mentioned, this could be some folks' first professional experience, so just be mindful of that. Providing performance updates to members, just like any employee. You know, we want our VISTA members to have regular feedback from their supervisor, mid-year, end of year, but ongoing as well, just, you know, so that they understand where they are. They very likely could be coming into your organization not knowing your community or not knowing what your work is in the community. So making sure that those regular check-ins can help them make sure that they're keeping on task and understanding the role. And then reporting out on programming progress. So you guys would report out to NeighborWorks, who then in turn reports to us. And I want to give Debbie and Sam and all the other leaders who've come before Sam a huge shout out, because the reports that I get back from the NeighborWorks sites and NeighborWorks America generally are just outstanding. I mean, the level of detail, the accomplishments that have been made have just been, second to none, really, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the national project is concerned. So with that, I am going to either stop and that was a lot of information that I went through, so I apologize. I tend to speak quickly. Let's pause and see if there are questions, and then I think it's Debbie's turn to take over the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Tina. And let's just check real quick and see if we have anything. Okay, nothing's come through yet. All right, that's fine. As you think of questions, go ahead and chat them in, and we'll also save time towards the end to answer anything online if you'd like to chat with us. So let's talk a little bit now about supervisor orientation. So if you are brand new to the Life of VISTA, you will be required to attend a 3-day supervisor orientation if you're going to be supervising your VISTA member, and that is sponsored by CNCS. So that training is going to be held in Columbus, Ohio. The dates are in June, somewhere between the 18th and the 21st. I believe that's 4 days. But Tina, if I'm not mistaken, the supervisor orientation will probably kick off on the 19th if the PSO starts on the 18th. But in any case, that's the date range you'll want to capture on your calendar, and keep that in mind, because we want to make sure that all new supervisors go to this orientation, because this is really where you learn the nuts and bolts and the ins and the outs of the program, and really how to effectively manage a strong project. The more you know, the better off you'll be, and the better off your VISTA will be throughout the course of the program year. The training is really essential. I've been through it several times, and it's really very solid training. And I highly recommend it, even though it's a requirement, but it's a good use of your time. So please keep that in mind. And then we will be sharing these slides on the member site. So we've included links to additional resources if you'd like to take a peek of what the VISTA member handbook looks like. There's also something called the National Service Knowledge Network that is just full of information. So if you are accepted into the program, these are some resources that you could go to help answer any questions or get information or share with your VISTA member, and any project supervisors you might have assigned to your VISTA project as well. And then there's a number of terms, conditions, and benefits that apply to the VISTA member, but you will want to be familiar with them as well. So all that information can be found on a site called the VISTA Campus. And if you're in the program, you'll be hearing us talking about that a lot, the VISTA Campus, just because it's chock full of so many resources, and there's really no need to recreate the wheel. There's so much on there that you'll want to access in order to help support your project and your VISTA member. And then, of course, there's this Corporation for National and Community Service. And then there's something called a Supervisor's Manual, which you will be introduced to at your supervisor orientation, but it's also online at this VISTA campus. And that's specifically designed with you in mind. Again, and that answers any questions you could think of that might have to do with the program and your role in that. So now we're going to give you a little bit of an overview specifically about the NeighborWorks VISTA program. And like we had mentioned before, we were established in 2009. That's when we started our partnership with CNCS. So we are going into year 10. So we are currently in year 9, headed into year 10. So you know, that's just going to be a great excuse for a little party. It's been a great partnership these past 9 years. And, you know, with Tina and her staff and the folks here at NeighborWorks and our field team and you, our NWOs, like all of us collectively have built a really strong program that we're all super proud of. So, I hope you'll feel the same way if you come into the program and continue to further our efforts to help alleviate poverty. So as of today, we have 62 VISTA members across the country that are currently serving at 43 different NeighborWorks organizations. And so you might be asking, so what project or what objective would be acceptable in your application? So we're going to talk a little bit about our VISTA program goals. The NeighborWorks VISTA project falls under the category prescribed. There's several categories prescribed by CNCS for VISTA projects. One of them is economic opportunity, and that one has 3 focus areas, which are financial literacy, housing, and employment. So if you have a project that falls nicely into one or more of those categories, that could very well be a VISTA project, and you'll want to consider applying for that. The other thing to keep in mind, as Tina mentioned earlier, is that all VISTA projects need to be connected to alleviating poverty. So you want to make a very strong connection to that in your application. When reviewers are looking at applications, they're going to be looking to how your project is going to help alleviate poverty and where it falls in these 3 focus areas. And then, of course, you'll also want to outline the capacity building strategies you have in place and the sustainability of that project. And this visual is just to give you a sense of our program's reach. This is basically a snapshot that was taken, I'd say, a few months ago, and showing you where all of our VISTAs are across the United States. And this slide just gives you a sense of some of the accomplishments that the program has had going back to July of 2009. So these are cumulative. So you can see VISTAs have raised quite a bit of money and have been vital in the recruitment of volunteers who have provided numerous hours of service for their communities. Now, the NeighborWorks VISTA program is special in that we provide some benefits that not all other VISTA programs provide. I'm not going to spend a long time going through each of these, but I just wanted you to know that the NeighborWorks program stands out a little bit in that we are really serious in providing training and professional development opportunities to our VISTA members. So every NeighborWorks organization that gets allotted a VISTA slot, that comes with a NeighborWorks Training Institute slot. And those slots work exactly like your staff slots. So what that means is you could set your VISTA to NNTI and pay reduced tuition fees because of that slot. All of our VISTAs have access to our e-learning courses, which is huge. We have many e-learning courses, which you may be familiar with if you're familiar with our training platform. And they are free just to our VISTA members, which is pretty amazing because each e-learning course costs, as you may know, NWO staff $195 a course. So our VISTAs access those as many as they want for free. And then the nice thing about working with an intermediary like NeighborWorks is that we handle the program coordination and support. So you'll be dealing directly with me and or Sam throughout the course of your program year. And so, there might be times when you would have opportunity to connect with the state office, but your main point of contact would be me, would be NeighborWorks. And then also as the intermediary here, or the sponsor, you might hear that language used, we do all of the report coordination and support. So Tina had mentioned there are reporting requirements for the program, and you will report directly into NeighborWorks America, and then we compile that data and report to CNCS on your behalf. And then we also offer technical assistance. So we have a number of NeighborWorks staff that are involved in our program, and we refer to them as subject matter experts, or SMEs, and they are available to offer support and resource and guidance to our VISTA members as needed. And so these slides I put in here just more as a visual because we covered, some of, the key players in the program. So just so you have a sense of how it all stacks up, the NeighborWorks organization would be considered the sub-site, or sometimes you might hear that agency referred to as the host site, but that's basically your organization. And then you, or the full-time staff person at your NWO, would be the site supervisor, supervising that VISTA member. And Tina had previously gone over many of the responsibilities for that supervisor. And then your VISTA member is there squarely in the purple box, allotted, or we should say, you are allotted a VISTA slot. You are responsible for recruiting. So you select your VISTA member and you make that recommendation to CNCS, and CNCS has the final authority to accept or reject your recommendation. So you are in charge of that hiring process. You're interviewing, you're recruiting, you're interviewing, you're selecting a VISTA candidate, you're making a final recommendation that goes to CNCS, and that would be your VISTA member. And then I work alongside our VISTA leader, Sam. So she's under the NeighborWorks America box. And Sam's role as VISTA leader is to support the members in the field. And then that's me over at NeighborWorks. And similarly, my role is to support you all, the host sites, the supervisors in the field. And then we have Tina under CNCS, the government agency that manages the VISTA program. Okay, so we went over some of these expectations previously, but I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail about what the expectations would be, so you have a clearer understanding of what you could potentially be signing up for. It's very important that whoever is the point of contact for your VISTA program, which is oftentimes the VISTA supervisor at your NWO, read and respond to emails. Managing a VISTA project is time consuming, and you want to make sure that you have the capacity to do that. So as we go through these, you'll see that it's just not a matter of filling out the application, getting somebody, and then never really thinking about it. There's definitely a commitment, a serious commitment on your part to be very involved in the project. You'll be expected to read through your supervisor manual. You'll be expected to, we talked earlier about recruiting and doing your on-site training for your VISTA member. You'll be managing their day-to-day work. You'll be supervising. You'll need to act as a mentor to that VISTA member. Very important is to verify the attendance of that member. You will have reporting responsibilities. I welcome and encourage you to email me or call whenever you have questions or concerns about the program. There are various webinars that we do expect you to participate in. We do send out surveys throughout the year that we will need you to respond to. And then certainly pretty important, and probably should be more towards the top of the list, we need you to stay in compliance with all the program rules and regulations. And those are things that you are going to learn about when you go to your supervisor orientation, when you attend the webinars, when you read the emails, when you use your job aids. So let's talk a little bit now about the application itself. The application instructions and the questions are all on the member site. If you don't have them or you don't have access to the member site, I'm going to put my email up later. Please email me and we'll get these out to you. But we spent a lot of time crafting the instructions for the application, so you will know exactly every question that's going to be asked of you, so you could fill it out offline first. And then also the thinking behind the questions and what type of information we want to see from you. So it's really important that when you answer the questions in the application, you include as much relevant detail as you can. The reviewers are looking at many applications, and you want to make their job easier by getting right to the point. So please keep your responses concise and very clear. It's not a short application. It will take you several hours to complete. And that's something you definitely want to do offline. Have that all done so when you go online, you can just copy and paste your responses into the online platform. So a date to circle on your calendar would be Friday, February 16th, which is the due date for the VISTA application. And so I am going to break down the major components of the application. I didn't list everything in here, but I wanted to highlight, and actually this is broken into 2 slides, the different areas that you'll be asked to speak to in the application. So one, obviously, is the project description. We want to know what you're proposing as your VISTA project. You'll definitely need to demonstrate a need. Why is this necessary? We're going to ask you to talk about the VISTA assignment or assignments. You might have more than one. In that category under VISTA assignment is where you're going to think through the VISTA assignment description. And this is going to include the various activities that you envision your VISTA member being involved in. And this is where you're going to be specific about these activities being capacity building. It's a very intentional assignment. So everything is in there for a reason and has a time frame. We never want to see duties as assigned in a VISTA assignment. That would not be acceptable. So this is not a staff position. This is a resource that's there for 365 days, and you have specific goals and tasks and activities that need to be addressed in that time frame. And then after that section, we'll be asking you about the long-term sustainability of that project, and then how you're going to be transitioning that after the resource, the VISTA member, is gone, because you don't have VISTAs forever. It's a limited resource. And so I kind of jumped through this pretty quickly, but when you look in the application, we break this all down even further and provide you with basically some are dummy answers and some are actually real responses that we've gotten over the years that have been very good in response to the application questions. So we've actually answered every single question in the application for you, so you could get a sense of the level of information and the quality of information that reviewers are looking for. And then the next category you'll be asked to speak to in the application will be the monitoring and evaluation. So how are you going to measure the success of your VISTA project? This one's very important, organizational capacity. VISTAs are there to help build the capacity of the sub-site or their host site, but you do need a baseline capacity to host a VISTA project. So you want to make sure that you're ready to take this on, and that there's somebody at your organization, a full-time staff person, that can be in the role of VISTA supervisor and be in that role effectively. And then another category would be project management. So we want to hear about the strategies you're going to use to manage your VISTA member, monitor their performance, and very important is maintain morale. Like Tina mentioned earlier, we're going to ask you about how you plan to recruit qualified candidates. And then we're even going to ask you to think through what that service opportunity or that job description is going to look like. So you'll be putting a lot of time and effort into this application process, but the beauty of that is because you're doing all that work up front, if you're invited to come into the program, when it comes time to do this work later, you've already got a great baseline to work with. You've already thought through this all. So the idea is that you can go back to your application and pull out chunks of it where you've thought through what that service opportunity is going to look like, or what those VISTA activities are going to look like. And then you'll be all set to create those documents as we go through the summer and the recruitment phase. So none of this is wasted. All this work will come in to really great use later on. And then we'll ask you to talk a little bit about the professional development that you'll be offering your VISTAs. So that would include anything having to do with on-site orientation or any kind of in-service training that you're going to be offering your VISTAs during that year of service. And then these are the important dates that you'll want to keep in mind. Of course, February 16th is when the application's due. And then sometime during the week of April 16th is when folks that have applied will be notified about their acceptance into the program, how many VISTA slots were awarded if you've requested more than one. And then this is also when you start to recruit. So that's when everything, you just hit the ground running. And the great thing about that is you really can hit the ground running because you've done all this pre-work. You've thought through it and you've done it in your application. And then we've talked about the supervisor orientation that's going to be in Columbus, Ohio, June 18th to the 21st. Then your VISTA members, there may be some exceptions, but the majority of all of the NeighborWorks VISTA members will be starting service at your site on August 27th. So they will have gone to their pre-service orientation preceding that date. So it's about a 4-day orientation. And then August 27th is a Monday, and that's when they actually report on site at your organization. And then just some final reminders, just some things I'd like to highlight that we mentioned or might not have made clear yet. One is, do you have the capacity? Really think that through. We're looking for people who are ready to make the serious commitment to be in the program and be a strong, effective host site. So it's not a decision you want to take on lightly. You really want to talk about it with the folks at your organization and pull in whoever you need to think through this commitment, because once you're in it for a year, hopefully more. And we're going to be asking a lot of you, but you will be getting twofold in return. One of the slides that I used to show in this presentation and that I've taken out, maybe I should put back in, is that every year we do a survey of all of our sub-site supervisors. And we ask them, how valuable this program has been to them. And without fail, everybody says it's extremely valuable. I've never actually talked to a site who's put in the work and regretted it. Anyone that really puts the work in and is serious and does everything they're supposed to do, they really get a lot out of it, and the VISTA gets a lot out of it too. So it is a serious commitment. So think through that piece before you get started on your application. It is important to note that resources are limited, so not every NeighborWorks organization will be awarded VISTAs. It is a competitive application process, so something to keep in mind, and that depends on appropriations and resources. And then the other piece of this has to do with the organizational health tracking system rating of your NWO. So only NWOs that have a satisfactory or above are eligible to apply for the NeighborWorks VISTA program. And then here's our contact information. So go ahead and take a second to jot this down if you don't already have it. You can email me at dwise@nw.org. That's me and Tina, by the way. And then Sam's up here, their VISTA leader. And then there's Tina's information as well if you need to reach out and you have any questions that might be better answered by CNCS.